Look at this scene inside the FBI command post that'll be watching for election threats that are both foreign and domestic. State, local, and federal partners all linked into the FBI command, and this is going to be staffed by 80 people across a dozen agencies running 24 hours a day, every day this week as the results come in. And just to let you know, U.S. security agencies say Russia, China, Iran are behind efforts to disrupt the election, especially through the mis- and disinformation that's being spread online. And we know that that has reached unbelievable, unprecedented proportions during this 2024 U.S. election. It's what we want to talk about for the next few minutes with Imran Ahmed, the founder and CEO of the Center for Countering Digital Hate. He's in Washington, D.C. this morning. Welcome to our program. Thank you.
Good morning.
On this election day, sir, what are you bracing for? What are the types of mis- and disinformation that could affect things today specifically?
Well, I think we're looking at sort of root A disinformation, so the most basic and fundamental types, giving bad information about what time the polls close, what time they open, where they are, to try and disrupt the actual mechanics of voting itself. But we're also expecting to see a large volume of threats pointing at those voting locations as well, making people less likely to turn up to vote. So what's called voter suppression using disinformation.
And who would be behind that range of threats?
Look, the truth is that it's not just about the bad actors. There is such an array of bad actors that might wish to disrupt elections in the United States or any other Western country. And there are hostile foreign states, there are domestic bad actors, anti-democratic forces within our own nations. And there are people who just do it because they think it's funny. And the problem that we have is, of course, that social media platforms allow the spread of disinformation. In fact, they amplify the spread of disinformation because so many people react to it with such outrage and anger. And that engagement actually means it goes up the visibility scale. So they amplify that algorithmically, showing it to more people, causing more of a problem.
That's so interesting because I was going to discuss that with you. I mean, there are always glitches of some variety, delays, long lines or something, but this phenomenon now of these threats being amplified, and particularly since the 2020 presidential election too, has that been the time frame that you have noted when this really became taking hold?
Well, I think that would be far too fair on us as societies, because the truth is that it's been going on for, the first signs of this in the UK, for example, where I originally come from, were in 2012 in the referendum on whether or not Scotland should leave the United Kingdom. We saw it in 2016 in the US and in Europe during the Brexit referendum. We saw it in 2020 again, and now we're seeing it in 2024, and it seems that 12 years later, we haven't worked out that we have a serious problem with our democracies and the integrity of our elections caused by social media platforms that encourages and amplifies the spread of disinformation that undermines not just the electoral process itself, but the values that underpin democracy. And yet we haven't done anything about it. And it does seem to me that it's about time that people, that lawmakers got off their sofas and actually legislated to make sure that we can hold these companies accountable.
In the very short term, in the immediate today, as far as solutions, I was reading some reporting out of Virginia, for example. If anyone posts anything false about what's going on in that state, election officials have prepared pre-written fact checks that they can share quickly online. Is that something that could help today?
Look, everything can help. And so there is no silver bullet solution to disinformation. It's a real problem because it makes people, if someone then goes, right, switch off my Twitter, I can vote at 11 o'clock. How are you going to get that information to them? The problem with a fact check is it's very hard to get it to the very precise person that's seen the erroneous information in the first instance. So you sitting out there in terms of viewers, the best thing that folks can do is text their friends and family and remind them to vote at the times that when voting is available, and tell them that it's their civic duty to do so. It doesn't matter who you're voting for. Voting's important. It's about having a voice. in these crucial elections. And in the United States, these elections have high stakes.
Let me ask you about something that you raised, specifically a threat in this realm just yesterday in a report from your center, and that is Elon Musk and X. You talked about his political posts that have had 17.1 billion views since he first endorsed Donald Trump in July, and that's more than all other U.S. political campaign ads, and in many cases, dozens of cases, his own mechanism of fact-checking, the community post, the community note, didn't intervene. What role do you think Elon Musk and X has played in this election specifically, and what concerns might you have of his role in the future, particularly if Donald Trump should win?
Look, I think Mr. Musk has been probably the most prominent spreader of disinformation in this election cycle. In previous elections, we know that Vladimir Putin and Russia were weaponizing social media platforms to spread chaos around the elections, to deepen the divides between people, to try and create new divides. But in this one, it's really been Elon Musk that's been at the forefront. He's been the outside threat to democracy by using a platform that's meant to be neutral. Look, these platforms claim that they're not publishers, they're platforms, and so therefore they should be free of any regulation, free of any intervention. They say they're like water or air. They're just things that occur naturally. But of course, that's not true. They're highly commercial organizations that seek to make tons of money out of it. Mark Zuckerberg's worth nearly $200 billion. You don't get that rich off free speech now, do you? And what Mr. Musk has done is really turned X into a machine for disinformation, for spreading his personal political views and disinformation that might make people back it as well. And I think that that is a question that we all have to ask ourselves. Why are these companies being treated like neutral platforms when they are in fact normal publishers? And shouldn't they be regulated in the same way that any other publisher is and be liable under the law?
Mr. Ahmed, thank you very much for that. It's definitely a conversation to continue, as I say, particularly perhaps depending on how events turn out today. Thank you for this morning. Now, Imran Ahmed from Washington, D.C.